The movie opens with the IMF team overseen by William Brandt is attempting to intercept a stash of lethal nerve gas which is on board a plane ready to take off for Russia. IMF agent Benji is observing the plane from a distance, with no sign of Ethan, their top agent. Agent Luther, who is on mission in Malaysia, taps into the comms, indicating that the only way to stop the plane now is to hack its controls via a Russian satellite, which they don't have authorization to do. The plane begins to take off, so Luther hacks the satellite, giving Benji a chance to access the plane. Just then, Ethan turns up, ordering Benji to open the door, before launching himself onto the now-moving plane. Ethan hangs on for dear life as the plane begins to lift off, with the team yelling at Benji to open the door. With the plane now mid-flight, Benji manages to open the cargo door, which alerts the pilots. Benji eventually manages to open the side door, allowing Ethan to slip inside. Once there, Ethan manages to strap himself under the stash of weapons and escape the plane. After a successful mission, Ethan goes by a front for the IMF to collect his mission briefing. The agent there has heard stories of Ethan's heroics, not sure what to believe since they sound too good to be true. Ethan plays the IMF message, which indicates that the stash of weapons belongs to a secret shadow organization known as the Syndicate. Suddenly, the voice in the message indicates that they are the Syndicate, having infiltrated the IMF, warning Ethan that they will eliminate him and his team. Suddenly, gas begins to fill his room. Outside, a cloaked assassin holds the IMF agent at gunpoint, then coldly shoots her dead. Ethan struggles, but the gas eventually knocks him out. In Washington, D.C., Brandt is facing a board regarding the actions of the IMF in the past. CIA Director Alan Hunley points out all the destruction the IMF has left in its wake, citing that the IMF needs to be dissolved and incorporated into the CIA. Agreeing with Hunley, the chairman rules in his favor. Ethan wakes up in a room, bound by his hands and legs to a post. A woman enters the room and appears to be preparing to torture Ethan when some Russian gangsters enter also. Ethan identifies one of the men, a mercenary by the name Vinter, also called the Bone Doctor, who is supposed to be dead. Vinter begins to beat on Ethan. Unaware that the woman has secretly taken up the key to Ethan's locks, she flashes the key to Ethan, who in turn knocks out Vinter and catches the key. The woman is then forced to fight against the men in the room, but her fast moves allow her to keep the upper hand for a short moment. Just as she is grabbed, Ethan skillfully frees himself before launching at the men, and the two manage to kill all the men except Vinter. The guards outside hear the commotion and begin banging on the door, so the woman leads Ethan through a passageway, before locking him on the other side of a gate. Her cover is not yet blown, so she urges Ethan to escape. She runs back to her team, who opened fire on Ethan down a corridor but failed to hit him. Ethan gets to a safe location and contacts Brandt, informing him of the IMF breach. He warns Brandt that the Syndicate is real and urges him to look into the name Vinter, but Brandt informs him that the IMF has been shut down. Ethan understands that he is now on his own, and Brandt urges him to track down the cloaked man just as Hunley enters the room. He demands to know where Ethan is, but Brandt indicates that he may be hunting the Syndicate. Hunley has no info on any syndicate, and believes that the IMF created the organization to keep themselves in operation. Brandt tells him he'll never find Ethan, but Hunley is determined to track him down wherever he is. 6 months later in Cuba, Hunley and his team have supposedly tracked Ethan to an apartment and sends in a team to grab him. While Ethan works out unaware, the team gathers at the door and eventually bursts in, but it turns out Ethan is in Paris watching them on cameras. Inside the room, the CIA team sees multiple news clippings and photographs of suspected syndicate members whom Ethan has been tracking for a while. Benji, who has been demoted to a desk job, receives a letter indicating that he has won a trip to a famous opera and is ecstatic. He is then called into a meeting with Hunley, accusing him of secretly helping Ethan evade them. But Benji's response passes the polygraph test. Benji gets himself a suit and gets to a Paris train station when a hooded figure hands him a package and disappears. He curiously opens the package to find a pair of glasses inside. Once he puts them on, Ethan begins talking to him. Ethan sends him a drawing of the cloaked man, asking Benji for help to track him down, as Ethan suspects that he will be at the opera. The plan is for Benji to locate the man, tag him, and allow Ethan to be able to track him. As the opera is about to begin, a tall blonde man carrying a briefcase of supposed instruments makes his way into the opera. Benji breaks into the server room and hacks into the security feed, where his invitation turns out to be a high-tech laptop. The opera begins, and Benji starts scanning the face of each member of the audience to find the man. Ethan himself has made his way to the upper deck of the opera, directly above the Chancellor of Austria, who is suspected to be a target of the syndicate. Benji is checking the cameras when he sees the tall blonde Russian sneaking around, and directs Ethan to his location. Ethan spots the man, and begins to follow him when he sees the woman who saved him. Wearing her beautiful dress, she gets to a location directly overlooking the Chancellor, and begins to assemble a sniper rifle. The blonde man takes position and begins to assemble his rifle. Ethan finds him, and launches himself at the assassin, and the two begin to struggle. The man is much taller and stronger than Ethan, tanking all his hits and beating his ass. Meanwhile, the unknown man is watching the fight through the assassin's contacts. Ethan is barely holding on for dear life, when he spots another Russian assassin about to take aim at the Chancellor. Ethan manages to defeat the Russian man and grab his gun. At that moment, he spots the woman also taking aim and is unsure who to take out. Knowing time is running out, Ethan shoots the Chancellor in his arm, causing both assassins to miss. The woman shoots at Ethan, and as the Russian fires at her, Benji bursts into the room to tackle him. The woman takes aim at them and shoots the Russian dead before launching herself from the platform to make her escape. Cops begin to flood the building, blocking her way out when Ethan turns up offering to help her. Ethan grabs a rope and the two run to the roof of the building. They both manage to make their escape to the street before the cops can corner them on the roof. The Chancellor and his team are making their getaway from the opera when a bomb planted inside his car explodes, killing him. Benji pulls up in a car and picks up Ethan and the woman, quite pissed since she tried to shoot him. The woman introduces herself as Ella Faust, a deep-cover MI6 intelligence agent. As Ethan removes all her little gadgets, she explains that she had to kill the Chancellor to regain the trust of the people she is working for. They soon realize that they are being followed by a van of men who open fire on the car. To maintain her cover, Ella dives from the car in an apparent escape. At CIA headquarters, Hunley gets news of the death of the Chancellor, and how Benji coincidentally was present. Based on this, he decides to make Ethan #1 priority, with orders to shoot to kill. Ethan and Benji ditch the car and head over to one of Ethan's longtime safe houses. Ethan immediately hands Benji fake travel documents, telling him to return to DC and tell the CIA that he tried to recruit him. Benji is hesitant to spill on his friend, but Ethan explains how the man in the code is behind recent massive casualties, which were cover-ups for assassinations and coups. He shows Benji a list of syndicate agents who are technically dead, meaning they could be anywhere at any time. Their first step is to track down Ella, when Benji notices that her lipstick is also a USB drive. Ella returns back to syndicate headquarters to report to the man in charge, who is actually a rogue MI6 agent, Solomon Lane. He scolds Ella for allowing Ethan to escape from her twice questioning her loyalty, but Ella reassures him that she is on his side. Solomon orders her to find Ethan, but she reveals that she has already laid a trail for Benji, is able to find information about a secret facility in Morocco, which holds a digital ledger belonging to the syndicate. The two arrive in Morocco to a villa where they meet Ella once more. Ella explains the identity of Solomon and how MI6 sent her undercover to identify syndicate members. She explains how Solomon kept a digital ledger on everything about the syndicate which was stolen from him and is being held in the secure facility they saw on her flash drive. In an attempt to steal it back, Solomon sent Ella. However, Ella notes that the mission is impossible. Roll credits. Brandt meets with Luther, telling him about Ethan being hunted by the CIA and wants Luther to find him before they do. Luther initially refuses, citing that Ethan can take care of himself, but Brandt explains that the CIA are looking to kill Ethan and Benji. Luther changes his mind but warns Brandt not to double-cross him. In Morocco, the three plan to send Benji into the facility, but are unable to impersonate any agents without first loading a biometric profile of Benji into their system. The storage for these profiles is kept underwater where no oxygen tanks can be used, but Benji is quite sure that Ethan can do everything while holding his breath. Ethan and Ella skydive under the facility while Benji pulls up to the gates to get access. The two get above the water intake for the profile storage, where Ethan changes off into a wetsuit and loads his suit up with oxygen. Once he is filled, Ethan launches himself into the water intake valve, where the current pulls him inside the large machine. Ella shuts the water intake off, slowing the movement of the water and allowing Ethan to swim to the profile for Benji. He is about to change them successfully when a mechanical arm smacks him away. The scientists working at the facility manage to get the water intake working again, which sends Ethan and the cards into a spin. Benji has arrived at the biometric scans just as Ethan grabs the cards and gets to the slots and changes them successfully. Ethan tries to escape, but he runs out of oxygen and passes out. Ella suddenly grabs him and escapes the waters and manages to resuscitate him. Benji meets up with the two, celebrating grabbing the ledger when Ella suddenly knocks him out and runs away with the info. Outside, she tries to escape when members of the syndicate meet up with her. Ella suits up with the men who are planning to ride out together, but she suddenly knocks down their bikes and rides off. Ethan and Benji jump into their car and spots Ella riding away and gives chase. Ethan takes a sharp corner and ends up face-to-face with Luther and Brandt, who had tracked him to Morocco, and they also join the chase. The bikers open fire on both Ella and Ethan, causing Ethan to take a side street. Some bikers follow him, but Ethan with some impressive driving manages to knock them off their bikes. He throws the car into reverse, escaping gunfire before they are launched off a platform, flipping the car multiple times. The biker approaches the car about to end them, but gets sent to see Jesus by Brandt. Ethan sees Ella ride past being chased by the bikers and jumps on the nearby bike. One biker tries shooting at him but gets sent flying. Ethan catches up with Ella being chased by one remaining biker who starts to shoot at Ella, but Ethan knocks him off his bike. He pushes the bike to its limits, but as he rounds the corner, he is shocked to see Ella standing in the road, which causes him to crash. Ella then jumps back onto her bike and rides away. Brandt, Benji, and Luther arrive at their safe house where Ethan is already present, just sitting in silence and defeat. Benji reveals that he made a copy of the ledger, so Ethan gets an idea. Ella arrives in England where she hands over the drive to the MI6 chief. After all she's been through to get it, he doubts that it is even authentic, citing that manipulation is what Solomon does best. The chief reveals that he wants Ella to return to the syndicate and to kill Ethan to regain Solomon's trust. Ella refuses, but the chief suggests that she can always disappear, as only a few people even know she exists. Back in Morocco, Ethan and the team realize that the ledger is encrypted with the biometrics of the Prime Minister of Britain. They figure out that Solomon used them to get to the ledger and is planning to go after the Prime Minister soon. Ella brings the disc to Solomon and learns that the disc does not hold a ledger, but Solomon refuses to say exactly what it is. His men check the disc but realize that it is empty. Ethan manages to track down Ella, who thinks that Ethan knew the disc was blank, but after thinking back, realizes that her agency chief is the one who wiped the disc. Ella reveals that Solomon has left a message for Ethan, and reveals a device which suddenly scrambles their comms, and they soon realize that Benji is missing. They race to the parking garage, only to see a van speeding away with Benji. Solomon then calls Ethan, telling him to bring the disc to save Benji. Ethan decides that they must get to the Prime Minister before Solomon does, and even though he knows that this is exactly what Solomon wants him to do, he thinks that this is how they will finally beat him. Brant reaches out to Hunley, who is on his private airplane, giving him their location. He wants to put an end to things, but wants to avoid seeing his friends get killed. Benji is taken to a room where both Vinter and Solomon are present, with Solomon ordering his men to get Benji ready. Hunley lands in London and meets with Brant on the night of an auction where the British PM is also present. Hunley spots the MI6 chief at the function and informs him of Ethan's plan to kidnap the Prime Minister. The MI6 chief sets up a meeting with the PM, and Brant informs him of Ethan's attempt to bring down the syndicate. The name rings a bell and the Prime Minister looks to the MI6 chief to answer as to why the syndicate is still active. The chief tries to deflect, but the Prime Minister responds to Brant saying that he knows the name Solomon. He adds that the syndicate was a creation of the MI6 chief to use former intelligence agents to perform missions without oversight. The files Benji stole from the vault is actually an immense secret budget that could be used to fund the syndicate for decades. The Prime Minister rejected the offer, but the MI6 chief apparently went ahead with the plan even though he still denies the syndicate's existence. The Prime Minister attempts to leave, but Hunley stops him, warning him that Hunt is extremely skilled and he could be anywhere and even anyone. Suddenly, the MI6 chief shoots the PM with a tranq truth dart, then rips off his mask to reveal that he is actually Ethan. Ethan holds Hunley at gunpoint, then rings up Luther, who along with Brant begins to scan and upload the PM's biometrics. Meanwhile, the real MI6 chief turns up to the auction and is making his way to the room. Brant gets the PM to say the passphrase which unlocks the files to reveal secret bank accounts all over the world. The MI6 chief and 2 bodyguards barge in, but Brant and Ethan tranq the guards before hitting the chief with a truth serum dart. Ethan reveals that he knows that the chief created the syndicate, but Solomon turned it against him, and the chief confirms this to be true. Hunley is taken back by the revelation, but develops a new respect for Ethan's determination. Ethan then calls Solomon to set up an exchange for Benji, but destroys the data, not wanting to chance Solomon getting his hands on the money. Ethan arrives at the meeting place where he sees both Benji and Ella seated. Benji is wearing wires, a camera contact lens, and also a powerful bomb strapped to his chest. Solomon tells Ethan through Benji to have a seat. He brags that everything went according to plan, but Ethan reveals that he knows that Solomon will stop at nothing to get the money, and that's what he will use to catch him. Solomon demands the disc, but Ethan reveals that it's all in his head, and if he kills Benji, then he is left with nothing. Without a choice, Solomon disarms the bomb. His men try to close in on them, but Ethan tells Ella to shoot him if they get too close. Ethan is adamant that Solomon let Benji go, and he complies and gives up the code to remove the vest. Benji gets free and leaves, and Solomon orders his men to kill Ella and capture Ethan. The men open fire, but Ethan uses his body as a shield for Ella before the two make a run for it. They manage to ambush and take out a few guards chasing them before escaping in an alley. Ethan tackles a man through a window while Ella is chased by Vinter. He closes in on her, but Ella ambushes him and disarms him. The two pull knives and begin to battle, but Ella is faster than Vinter and manages to kill him. Meanwhile, Ethan recovers from the fight and is making his escape when Solomon finds him and begins to chase him. Solomon catches up with Ethan shooting at him, causing Ethan to escape down a hole. Solomon finds him laying at the bottom and jumps down after him and is about to shoot, but it turns out to be a trap, as Ethan's team have trapped him inside a bulletproof glass cage. He shoots the glass in anger, but they gas him until he passes out, just like what he did to Ethan. Having witnessed an IMF success firsthand, Hunley returns to the Senate committee and claims that their previous meeting served as a pretext to help Ethan expose and shut down the syndicate, convincing the committee to restore the IMF. After the meeting, Brant welcomes Hunley as the new IMF secretary. Subscribe for more recaps like this.